you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Yeah, again, thanks to Bone Bam for that great theme song, Bad Habit, though I don't want to hear it a second time, right? No! Here we are. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Opening statement today. Test ballads, right? So, Robert and I last night were talking, and before we get into North Carolina and all this, all of this is going to tie into it. This is why we wanted Crappy Burger, all right, to print the ballots like he promised he would do, to make them available like he promised they would do. And when a judge in Georgia talks about pristine ballots that look like they don't even have a fold, my ears start going up, okay? Look, this is the problem. Only when a Democrat makes an accusation is it considered to be legitimate or credible and worthy of further investigation. When others make an accusation, unless you're the Green Party in 2016, for instance, and it suits Hillary Clinton to do so, it is incredible. And this kind of stuff is what is shaking the foundation of our self-governing society. Election integrity is more important than any other issue because everything else follows. Everything else follows. If we do not have confidence in our elections, then we cannot have confidence in our regime, in our governments. All right, and that is the problem with all of this. You might notice that everybody cared about this all of a sudden. There weren't hundreds of affidavits of people on specific voter records. We're not talking about cute little charts everyone was putting up and statistical analysis here and there. No. We were talking about actual records of voters who were contacted, who were deduped, and who clearly did not request a ballot themselves, yet were shown as absentee ballot requested. He didn't have any of that. The Adams campaign didn't have any of that. Nearly every battleground state in November ultimately posted vote-by-mail numbers that were larger than the outstanding reported totals going into Election Day and what we knew from officials. We didn't have precinct level data to be able to decide whether or not something was valid, something was not, what was outstanding, what was not. It was the Wild West, and it was chaotic by design. And anybody who claims that everything that has been thrown out, there's no evidence, this and that everything went, according to plan, and it was the most secure election in history, is either stupid, intentionally lying, or naive. There is no way around it. The system was radically changed to the extent it was not, to an extent with which it was not designed to bear the burden of. Government does nothing efficiently in 60 days. It certainly cannot turn around how has it been conducting elections for decades upon decades upon decades. And if it was exploitable in any way, rest assured it would have been exploited. Why? Because human beings are not angels. We have laws because of our nature. Our human nature is to exploit weakness in people, in law, in society in general. We look, sadly, it's a sad commentary on human beings, but it is indeed true. We look for those weaknesses, we exploit them for personal or collective gain. And there were weaknesses. 100,000+ test ballots already strikes me as total nonsense. When new systems are tested, those test ballots should have been, at the very least, completely segregated. I'm not clear why you needed that many for the 5 boroughs anyway. But let's just say they did. And if it was maybe it was incompetence. Maybe that's fine. That's what this is the point I was always trying to make. It could be incompetence. It could be good faith errors. Or it could be something more sinister. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? You should still not have been rushing to any camera you could rush to, rushing to any microphone, rushing to your little keyboard to smear anybody who questioned it, especially when they had legitimate evidence. But what happened in New York City raises further questions about absentee ballot voting in general. You can't, because I see people say, well, this is why we need to count them on election night. Election integrity deadlines don't require you to fully count them on election night. Because the problem, and this is twofold, it's why it's so complicated, and why the fingerprint is the only answer. Because if you don't leave enough time, then they'll count every single one of them, whether they're legitimate or not. There's a reason why we have canvassing boards that basically pass judgment and adjudicate whether ballots that are challenged are credible or not, are legitimate, are lawful ballots. We have other states that, like Florida, for instance, who begin that process sooner, early in some respects, but this is why widespread mail-in voting for years, it was the consensus that it was not a good idea to expand mail-in voting to this extent because, look, ask Jerry Nadler. How many times did we play that video with Jerry Nadler? What's his take on it? What was Barack Obama's take on it? This all changed all of a sudden. They are not. And Americans know it because we've polled it. I just put up Georgia again last week just to show you what Georgians believe about mail-in voting. Do Georgians believe mail-in voting increases fraud? Look at that number. It's not even a majority. It's an overwhelming majority. Should mail-in voting be limited? That is not the conversation we're having in the national media. They want to expand it. They referred to H.R. 1 as a civil rights bill, a voting rights bill, when most Americans would have found that ludicrous, as we showed with our polling. I don't know if this was an accident or not. What I do know is maybe Flanagan's letter to the Maricopa County Board of Elections makes a little bit more sense now. Maybe the judge's commentary on Fulton County makes a little bit more sense now. Maybe it makes a little bit more sense now why they want to centralize all of these counting procedures in states like Arizona, in states like Georgia. Because in that case, when you're hanging out at the arena, you're not just counting the ballots in Fulton County, are you? In the inner cities especially? No. You get the surrounding suburbs and everything. Maybe it makes a little bit more sense now that demographics didn't seem to have the similar voting behavior that they have always in the past. Instead, vote by mail was the correlation. The amount of vote by mail in the overall electorate dictated whether or not, an electorate voted more pro-Biden than other similar demographics or less pro-Biden. So let's get into North Carolina because this dovetails off of it. But I just want to bring this point up. Again, it's only credible when a Democrat makes an accusation. And if this was intentional, and they were, essentially, if this is the most sinister explanation, which is that they used test ballots to stuff the ballot box. It's not new, it's just thank you. That was very nice of you.
I love you.
It's just, I know you do, no charging. If they use test ballots, and I'm not saying it's never happened before, but on a scale like this, and it's the most sinister explanation possible. Imagine, and they did this at this kind of a scale for a mayoral race in New York City. Imagine what they'd be willing to do in a presidential election, especially when they knew that the media would smear anybody who deigned to raise objections. So when people ran to me, Rich, is it really possible they could do, there could be this much? Yes. If you were watching the show for the first 60, 80 days before the election, you knew it was not only possible, it was rather easy. The intention behind, and look, I just don't believe in consequences. The intention behind the changes before the election was to create chaos. It was by design. Remember our 3-point bulletin? Rapidly expand the voter pool. Rapidly expand the number of ballots that are out there floating around. Weaken verification procedures. And actually, step 2 was have some means or method by which you could collect this new expanded pool of ballots, requested or not. Which is why they were attempting to overturn statewide existing bans on ballot harvesting, or attempting to use drop boxes when they couldn't get around that. It's about chain of custody. But none of that matters if the verification procedures are still strong. Doesn't matter if you expand the ballot pool. It doesn't matter if you find third parties to bring them back. If the verification procedures are still stringent and they're rejected, now it doesn't. And that would be why you would attempt to weaken the verification procedures, such as signature verification, such as removing existing verification procedures for certain groups of ballots, like indefinitely confined, drop boxes. and other third-party gathered ballots. Listen, at this point, you would have to either be willfully ignorant, and I'm not talking about from a media perspective. I'm talking about from an observer, from somebody watching the show right now. You have to be either willfully ignorant, meaning you wanted Joe Biden to win, so you just don't care about all this. You're willing to sacrifice the integrity of our election system to get a W. That makes you extremely shallow and narrow-minded. You do not see the chaos that you are sowing that is to come.
Either that or it's worse. They don't care about it.
Or they don't care. Yeah, or it's worse. They just
they're-
don't care. Yeah, because they
Their
hate
vanity.
the country and the society to the point where they want it broken down. Maybe that's valid. Or you're just naive to how this process works. For observers, if you have been observing elections, or you know, and there are explanations for people in the media, which I'm going to say in a second, but if you have been observing elections for as long as I have, you have no valid reason to pretend anymore. You really never did. But maybe this is why pink slips don't match. Or maybe this is why another reason pink slips don't. I don't know, because it seems like this was tentacles all over the place. So multi-pronged. It's like just another tentacle, maybe. You know, but the bottom line is, if you're a media person, election observers, and even projectionists, then they are lying projectionists. Predictors of behavior.
I love you.
Cannot predict the behavior of people you don't understand and even despise. So we're going to end that. We're going to dispense with that, actually looking at North Carolina in a second and why they keep getting North Carolina incorrect. But the bottom line here is, for those people, it's at the point now where you're just intentionally lying because you didn't want to be wrong again. Because you didn't want to be embarrassed by your modeling. Which is not really modeling. Your model is a blend of glorified poll reading, and I'm not just talking about one person here, I'm talking about them all. They're a model of glorified poll, a blend of, one variable is glorified poll reading, and the other variable is, God, I hope this happens. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you spit your coffee. You look so nice today. I don't want you to spit coffee on your dress. But that is the only explanation anymore. You couldn't bear to suffer another embarrassment like you suffered in 16. Because in 18, the media just covered for you and they let you get away with your failed projections. Mm-hmm. Because they were failed, Laura. The Democrats take the House is not a projection. They were still wrong on many seats. And on statewide Senate races, it was abysmal. Gubernatorial and senatorial elections, the projections and the polls sucked.
Sure did.
And that is the reason why I hammered it for as long as I did, because we were coming up on the 2020 election. And what really mattered, that they somewhat projected Democrats would take the House, even though they were wrong. I mean, they grossly overstated the Democrats' national support. Look at the LA Times poll. And what did they do? They overstated Democrat support by 7 points. They overstated Joe Biden's support by almost 7 points. Actually, what was their final? 13? So it was, about 9 points. 11 or 13, I think it was. Somewhere in that ballpark. But still, a ridiculous margin for Joe Biden that was never going to happen. And we're at a point here now. Because, like I said, Robert and I were talking last night. This is why nobody would meet our demands. Mm-hmm. Or at least it feels like this is why. Nobody in the Georgia administration would follow through with their promises and give us the scans as they promised they would. In Michigan, no wonder why maybe we can't get those absentee ballot applications. Maybe they don't exist. Maybe we were worried about the address matching and the signature matching. We were worried about the validity of those. Maybe they simply don't exist.
Oh, man. Wouldn't that be a whole new can of worms?
And no wonder why when this became the focus of the audit in Arizona, enough became enough. Remember that? Mm-hmm. The Maricopa Board of Election. Oh, you know what now? Enough is enough. This is not good for the country. If you're so confident that everything was the most secure in the history, then you wouldn't have any problem with us taking a look at this stuff.
They wouldn't care if cameras were there.
And I have to say there's really grifting on both sides. Because that's the topic really of what I wanted to talk about today.
That's the truth of the matter.
The truth is the media grift is disgusting. Even if what happened in New York City turns out to be an accident, this is why when you see anomalies, the way, not just hard evidence as people like us and Matt and others have shown, when you see hard record-based evidence, you should warrant some kind of an it warrants some kind of an investigation. The media just shuts it out. Even if it was incompetence, when you see those flags, it's worthy of investigation. It doesn't have to be sinister. But as we can see, it only warrants in further investigation when it's a Democrat who makes the claim. Even though the Adams campaign had a fraction of the evidence. Mm-hmm. Look, you know what? Well, we've done this before, but in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, in everywhere, we already knew the outstanding vote, the vote by mail. You people really, really don't understand this. Some of you, like you naysayers out there. Mm-hmm. We worked with the decision desk on election night. Everybody had the same numbers. Everybody understood that there were late arriving ballots in Pennsylvania that exceeded what officials had said was outstanding. And the pattern on election night was very clear. Wherever those numbers exceeded, the election day turnout didn't hold. Not only exceeded because in some places like North Carolina, they put the squash on it. So it started to whittle down Trump's margin. And then we were like, hey, we agreed. You can count them. Normally in North Carolina anyway, they will count absentee ballots up until 3 days after the election. Not absentee ballots that arrive after the election. Those are absentee ballots that already made it. And they would count them 3 days after.
Because they were postmarked.
They were postmarked. They got 9 days in this case in November. But in the end, Republican, I would say grassroots. It wasn't even the RNC, right? It was grassroots. Republicans enforced that. There was a judicial race, a state Supreme Court race, that put a lot of attention on these absentee ballots even after the race started to tighten. All right, so it was just more was on the line, is my point, and there was more of a spotlight on it. And Democrats did something they later tried to renege on, which is agree to not count the ballots that were coming in after Election Day. Even the state Supreme Court, the Democratic state Supreme Court candidate, agreed to it, but then when she couldn't get, they weren't enough. They simply the vote by mail simply wasn't enough. So they wanted to go back on their earlier agreement and do what everybody else had been doing in Pennsylvania and what they had been doing in Arizona and everywhere, which is to count ballots that arrived after the fact.
Is that
and really it was in the Midwest. And for folks who say, well, Pennsylvania was their first time, that's kind of my point, guys. Pennsylvania is a state where there wasn't much early voting or absentee ballot voting at all. They were a election day voting state. So was Michigan for the most part, by the way. They never took but the Midwest is like that. They never took to early vote. They never took to absentee ballot vote. So you expected them to completely overhaul the election system in 60 days or less? In some cases? That's an unreasonable, naive expectation. and at the very least was going to lead to human error. At the very least. I think ultimately what we saw in a state like Pennsylvania, however, is a little bit more than human error. When you have a corrupt attorney general go to the microphone and say that Allegheny County is going to find enough votes to overtake Joe Biden, there's a serious... Folks, what the hell is wrong with you? I urge you, there is something much greater at stake here than who the hell you wanted to win. This has now become... we're a laughing stock.
We're definitely.
Our neighbors to the north and south are laughing at us. We're third world to Canada. We're third world to Brazil. I'm serious.
I know, it's just it's horrible when you think about it. Like how
we are a laughing stock. The president of Mexico and others. Why do you think they took so long? Take this guy's here. I'm trying to be careful here in what I say. But only, look, if you believe what the American corporate media is selling you, rest assured you're the only one who believes it. Or you're the only group of people who believes it. And as we saw with polling in Georgia and nationally, even the majority of Americans nationally understand what time it is here. All right, so let's get into North Carolina, a state where it would not have held. The election day margin for Trump would not have been enough to overcome the early vote margin with Biden. Another state, by the way, where the gross polling was trying to project an overwhelming early vote for Biden. His early vote lead was nowhere near what the New York Times, the upshot, whatever it is, I don't even know what it's called now. It was nowhere near where the New York Times polling and others predicted that it would be. I'm going to prove to you right now that the NPA margin for Biden was not anywhere close to reality. The polling that was projecting the independents would go for Joe Biden by such ridiculous margins, impossible. And I'm going to show you right now why it's impossible, and then I'm going to show you why they keep getting this wrong. Because I think in many instances, they are using what they probably know to be random response biases, all right, and social desirability biases. They're using what they know to exist, artifacts, flaws in their methodology. They're using them now as excuses to be able to report the results that they want to report because they're ideologically corrupt. They care. What do I mean by that? They care less about being correct and accurate than they do about the benefit to they can be to the narrative that is for their preferred candidate, that supports their preferred candidate. Because New York Times polling is a great example. He knew what I was telling him he did wrong in 2018 in Florida was true. You have to. He continued to repeat that mistake this time around in that state, and he did the same thing in North Carolina. And we're going to go over North Carolina right now. All right? So, for those who aren't on the locals community, I will give you a brief overview of the voter analysis and what it says. Once upon a time, Democrats had double-digit advantages in North Carolina, even though North Carolina appears to be getting closer. Democrats are losing that partisan advantage. And there are two things that definitely happened. You had some independents that supported Donald Trump just register as Republicans. You did have some of those ancestral Democrats who voted Republican at the national level, but would vote for a Democrat like Cooper as a gubernatorial candidate. All right? You did have some of them register, but the idea that all of that is over now is not true. And North Carolina is a great example of why it's not true. So what I'm telling you happened is, those independents who overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in 2016, many of them just turned into Republicans. And that edged up closer to the Democratic Party advantage. Democrats lost some voters to independents, and that is what created the political environment to give Donald Trump a slight win. And I will tell you this again. Had they been allowed to continue to count those ballots that came in after Election Day, They centralize ballot counting too, by the way. All right? So had they been allowed to continue to count those late arrivals in centralized areas, and what do I mean by that? I mean, take it to an inner city location, even though those ballots also include the surrounding metro suburbs. So Atlanta, for instance. The arena. They're just not counting votes in Atlanta, in that area. They're pulling votes in from the surrounding ATL. Metro ATL. They're pulling votes in from affluent suburbs. And by the way, in others. In a state like North Carolina, you have Charlotte. It is growing. That's true. It is one of those cities, along with Phoenix and Atlanta, that are growing.
Much, though.
But Milwaukee, by the way, centralized. Philadelphia, centralized. These are cities that are losing and have lost population since the last presidential election. Some of them have lost significantly over a year. 1 year. And yet, there were all these new ballots. It's incredible. It's miraculous. Now in Atlanta, Phoenix, Charlotte, you could and should have expected that. All right, so let's take a look. Let's just bring Georgia. Oh, first of all, let's read this ridiculous comment. Hold on. Let's do that first. Let's read this ridiculous comment from the New York Board of Elections. Bear with me for 1 second, and I'm going to bring this up, even though I probably, let's see what happens here. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize it. Okay, let's do it.
You're there.
Yep, I'm here. It's good. I just want everybody else to see it.
Well,
Too. There we go.
Okay.
The Board of Elections conducts rigorous and mandatory pre-qualification testing for every election. Yes, okay. It has been determined that ballot images used for testing were not cleared from the election management system, the EMS. Okay, this is why Robert and I want the images that the Secretary of State in Georgia promised us and promised everyone. EMS produces cast vote records, CVRs, from ballot images. RCV software uses the CVR. Notice they're trying to sound all smart. To produce unofficial results. When the cast vote records were extracted for the first pull of RCV results, it included both test and election night results, producing approximately 135,000 additional records. The board staff has removed all test ballot images from the system and will upload election night results, cross-referencing against election night reporting software for verification. The cast vote record will be regenerated and the RCV rounds will be retabulated. The board apologizes for the error and has taken immediate measures to ensure the most accurate, up-to-date results are reported. And again, sip of coffee here, time out. When I tell you that it is not only possible, it is rather easy when there is no oversight, this is what I'm talking about. Of course, you can mix those in. Maybe when one pallet in Maricopa is missing 17%, maybe they forgot to remove the scans. And I'm not saying it was intentional or not. That's irrelevant. It really is irrelevant. However, they deleted the logs, so now we'll never know if it was intentional, will we? Will we? Of course, if you were a prosecutor leading up an investigation, that in and of itself would be evidence of criminal activity because you appear to be covering up something. When you delete records, Mrs. Benson, when they're under request, that suggests you're trying to hide something. Let's get back to it. So let me bring up, I'll bring up North Carolina in a second. Again, this is why we asked for the scans. Is this why we didn't get them? It could be incompetence, human error.
Lots of human.
First of all, it is my experience they don't test that many ballots. It is my experience they can be done with chunks in 5 digits and that they typically use the same across the 5 boroughs to test new software. But I could be wrong. They could be doing something differently. It's been a while. I'm being honest here, and that's what I told Robert last night. It's been a while. You know, I've been a New Yorker for a long time. It has been a while. It's possible they used a large number. I mean, that's totally possible. However, did they test them the day before the election?
No.
Folks, that isn't how it's typically done at all. So why were they still in the system? To the point that when they printed that CSV, it included both tested and actual votes. You're telling me it stayed, the image stayed on the system for a prolonged period of time and nobody remembered to delete them? Or is it possible, again, the cynic in me questions, is it possible Mr. Adams wasn't going to be overtaken anyway? Mm-hmm. And thus, they were worried they may get their chewed by the new mayor for trying to prevent the new mayor. Okay? And if you take that little hypothesis and flip it around and apply it to November, then it is in your best interest not to comply with investigations. Because you already believe Joe Biden will be president and you don't want to have to answer for that if it isn't fruitful. The second, all right, it's already 11:37. I do want to move on to North Carolina, but I do want to talk about the other side of the grift because I beat up on the media and the political class for 35 minutes. The other side of this grift is that everything is intentional and that many of these people have been working like for the rest of their lives and over the last 6 months to prevent this. Folks, if you are loyal readers and you are loyal listeners, you know that there is myself and a very, very small handful of people who understood what was going to happen, who understood why it was going to happen, and who understood what it would take to make sure it never happens again. These people are coming out of the woodwork. Give me some money, I'll stop this. The RNC raised tens of millions of dollars on a lie. Believe you me when I tell you it was a lie. Because they were never going to stop the steal. They hadn't even understood how it happened in the first place. Our phone was ringing off the hook asking me to explain the basics of ballot counting. They got rolled and they had no clue how or why it happened. Yet they were sending you text messages, emails. We need your money now. Help us stop the steal. There are now all of these other groups out there. And I'll tell you right now, with the exception of Matt Brainerd and Look Ahead America, there is nobody else whose work I have reviewed.
No individual we have
no
met
individual,
yes. That we have met
and have
seen,
looked at, yes, and have seen the work and
looked into the man's eyes.
And looked into the man's eyes and explained, tell me your methodology. Most of, if not everything else, is snake oil. Snake oil. Matt is the only one who uses industry standards to detect this stuff. And I have no idea where some of these other people came from. No clue. They sure as hell were not there in September. Or even when did I start this? In the summer. I think I started rambling about this. They sure as hell were not there in August. They sure as hell were not there in September. They sure as hell were not there in October. Come November, they had no idea how this happened. If you remember, everybody from the right, who is now claiming to be a champion of election integrity, were celebrating and popping the champagne. If you were celebrating on election night and now claim to be some guru, then you have a serious problem. And they all were. Even people who surround the president, who surrounded the former president, who now claim to be dedicating their lives to election integrity, did not heed the warning. Did not understand the problem enough. That's what you really have to get. They didn't understand it. And everything is not fraud. It is very possible here this was incompetence. It is. You can be a cynic like they have thoroughly turned me into a cynic. But you shouldn't jump to the conclusion that it's automatically some kind of act of fraud. Like everyone wants to do all the time on the right. That's why we have these procedures, or had these procedures in place. That's why we limited access to fraud-ridden voting methods. That's why we did it the way we did it for decades and decades and decades and decades. Because humans, by nature, want to exploit, and humans, by nature, are flawed. And to me, at first, it really didn't matter which one it was. The bottom line was you were changing the system. You were creating weaknesses. You were unnecessarily, but by design. And it was the simple truth that it was by design is enough to be some kind of to be some kind of conspiracy of a sort. I don't know what else to call it. But nobody who's been observing elections for as long as I have would ever tell you that this was legitimate. Not privately, sitting at a bar having a beer with each other. And not honestly. All right, so with that, let's go to North Carolina. Another state, like I said. All right, so for those who are not on the locals, and don't get, I gotta start getting better like Robert here. All right, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. And if you were in it, then you would have what I'm about to pull up right now for everybody else, which is the North Carolina statewide voter analysis modeling. All right, machine learning. Count 6.7 million unique individuals. All right. 3.2 nearly having landlines, 3.8 nearly having cellular mobile records, and a little over 4 million having an email record on file that I could look at and match to the voter. And this would be a good time to point out, speaking of Matt Brainerd, the Secretary of State, and others admitting basically that they use the same method. The method of the matching to address and name, date of birth, middle initial is the industry standard, not just for detecting fraud, but is the industry standard for when we pull online and we want to match an online panelist to a voter file. There, first of all, is no other way to do it. So the mere idea, that was one of the most ridiculous criticisms I had heard at the time. And that is also how we were conducting matches. That's the only way to do it. Voters don't give social security numbers. It's ridiculous. It's totally, some of the most absurd stuff I've been hearing, that's among them. All right. So anyway, excluding the dead and change of address flags. That has to be a caveat now, apparently. This analysis, as should any list that a pollster pulls from the voter file to make calls, excludes the dead or suspected dead, and excludes change of address flags. Why? Because they're not eligible to vote. Precisely why? Being registered to vote in the United States of America is not the same thing as being eligible to vote in the United States of America. Democrats, 35.67%. So let's just go ahead and round up. 35.7. Republicans, 30.3. Just over D plus 5 generally. Just about D plus 6. All right? Just under D plus 6. North Carolina. With the nuns, who are supposedly going to go for Joe Biden by a 2-1 margin, according to, various polls. Significant margin, touted by the New York Times polling. 33.3% if we round to the nearest 10. So almost a third on the money. 2.228 million voters are not affiliated with either major party. Libertarians have about 0.6%, a little over, about 40,500, a little over. All right. And the Green Party has only about 3,500, a little less than 3,500 registrations. Other is about 4,600, roughly, just under it, 4,597. All right, so we're looking at this and we can see it is still a D-leaning state. How on earth could it still be Republican on the federal level? And it is getting closer, but this voter file is getting closer, which is weird. I know. And we'll talk about why that could legitimately be the case. It is a 53-47 female-male split. All right. Again, much like Florida, since men are supposed to be. So, I don't even know what the word. There's supposed to be a gender gap. Men are supposed to favor Republicans. Females are supposed to favor Democrats. That is not always the case, and is sure as hell always not the case in the South. Right? Women in the South could be more conservative than you would think. And the gender gap is shrinking right now, actually. I know that sounds crazy, but in our polling, the gender gap is shrinking. And I think has shrunk. All right? Protestants, 63% known to be Protestants in this modeling. Why is that important? Protestants are overwhelmingly a Republican vote. We used to do the religiosity index, which was a gathering of different sources, Gallup's data. We used to take data from Pew, other surveys that were conducted by various religious groups, and we used to put out, this is a long time ago, but we used to put out what you might remember to have been the religiosity index. How religious is a state? And North Carolina was among the most religious battleground states. Trust me when I tell you that Laura and I'm not going to give things away here, but we were looking for a place to build a house in North Carolina, being in Florida. We love Florida, love it. But we were looking for a place that was, more eastern seaboard because we didn't want to go back to the north. We wanted something that kind of reminded us of home. All right. We love the Gulf of Florida. It's our favorite, hands down. But wanted something to remind us of home. And it looked like the Jersey Shore in some of the mid-Atlantic shore North Carolina towns, with one exception. It looked like the Jersey Shore used to look before they kicked the mob out and it turned to a dump. All right. But every 2 blocks was a church. Every 2 blocks was either a Baptist or a Protestant non-denominational or whatever it may be. It was a Protestant church like every 2 blocks in a shore town. Now you go to the Jersey Shore, you guys know what I'm talking about. Every 2 blocks is a dumb drunken group of kids laying on the street. Very different. But years ago, the Jersey Shore used to be pretty, it did look like that. All right? There is no doubt that in some of these areas you would look at Morehead City, very affluent, very wealthy. You would think very typical Democratic elitist area. Nope. Not at all. These people are culturally Republican. Trump won them by 30 plus points. Why? Because this suburb educated voter phenomena is strictly a metro phenomena. It is not true that it's happening in every suburb. It's just flatly untrue. But this is a perfect example of why religion does really matter. These people are culturally, faith, family, God, country, God, family, country kind of thing, even though they may own 60-foot yachts. So when we look at this map, which we're going to look at right now, and by the way, just for people who don't know, I was just talking about Morehead, that's Carteret County, and you can clearly see Carteret County is overwhelmingly Republican. You have Craven County a little bit north of that, overwhelmingly Republican. And then you have, though, however, some counties that don't make any sense. And I'm talking about on the eastern seaboard, guys, all right? Carteret is that funny-shaped county right on, it's like smack dab in the middle of the county, but on the eastern coast, okay? Trump won that with 71% of the vote, 70.5. Joe Biden couldn't even crack 30% here. All right. And it's very rich. Donald Trump won Craven County by 20 points, over an increase of his performance over Hillary Clinton. And by the way, I'm wrong. It wasn't a 30-point margin in Carteret. It was a 40-point margin in Carteret. Excuse me. Which was an increase because I'm thinking about Hillary Clinton, which was 31 points. that he won it over Hillary Clinton. These are wealthy people. Craven County to the west and northwest of Carteret County is more military-like. All right, but there is a growing professional class in Craven County that's a little bit yuppie. All right, they're not the same. And there's that mixed with more African Americans. Craven County is about 31% African American. So obviously Donald Trump did very well with African Americans in North Carolina. Otherwise, that would never happen. 14%, like he did over Hillary Clinton? Okay. Winning whites overwhelmingly. 20 points? No. Not going to happen without double-digit black support. But north of Carteret County is Hyde County, a very small county. You will have noticed in the voter file, which pulling registrations, you will have noticed that Hyde County is overwhelmingly Democrat. It's a very small county. Yet Donald Trump clobbered Joe Biden here. Clobbered him by 15 points. How on earth did that happen if the county is majority Democrat? Moving out to the west, all right? Look at counties like, let's think there's a whole lot. Everything from Polk, and even to the west of Polk, but everything from Polk to right before Mecklenburg when it becomes Democratic, which was Joe Biden's 67-32. I mean, Mecklenburg is well, I'll refrain. It's not a great area, all right? There is, right, yeah, but basically there is outside of Mecklenburg, everything to the west, excluding Buncombe County, which tightened actually, went for Donald Trump. How is that possible when you see counties out there, if not majority Democrat, clearly Democrat advantage? How is that possible? Robinson, Donald Trump won 60% of the vote. How is that possible? Okay, when you're looking at these polls, Union County, by the way, another great example. I almost forgot. Donald Trump won 60% of Union County. It's the one to the east of Mecklenburg, folks. Look at the margin. Again, how is that possible if two things happened? If Donald Trump was in the low to mid single digits with Democrat crossover support, like the New York Times and others repeatedly showed. If Donald Trump was going to get killed among independents, as the New York Times and others repeatedly showed. How on earth did Donald Trump win this state? Not only the state, forget about the state. Look at the county by county we just went through. Hyde, Polk, Robinson. How did he build these margins? Because there aren't enough Republicans in these counties to build margins like that. The answer is simple. One, if you only poll Mecklenburg and Wake County, then you only talk to independents and Democrats there, or disproportionately, you don't reach enough in the other counties to be representative, all right, or to do what we call over here to reach representation. Because even if you did call Union, chances are the first Democrat you speak to isn't going to represent the totality of Democrats. No kidding. Democratic voters, think to our public polling project, Democratic voters even in rural America are far more likely to take polls than conservatives, and they are skewing our rural vote. We just went over this. The graph is up. Yeah, I want them to see this. The bottom line is, they're not talking to enough people. They're relying on the old rules of randomization. Well, if I randomly call these people, then I'm likely to be representative. That's not true. You violated randomization the minute you opened a voter file. You already betrayed those laws. Why? Because who has a landline? Who has a cell phone? Mm-hmm. You're not reaching everybody the same way. And different groups of people respond to different modes of collection at different rates, right? It's the same principle that'll lead you to believe Joe Biden was going to swing Greene County by 30 points in Pennsylvania. Because when you picked up the phone and you called those people, that response bias that favors liberals, you reached the librarian. You did not reach the worker, the conservative housewife, the head of the choir at her church. Whatever the hell it may be, folks.
And that's why you have to join
peoplespundit.locals.com. Peoplespundit.locals.com. Because you would have known this already. All right? And think back to what we were just going over with not just response biases, but the social desirability bias. Those voters are much more likely to tell you to go pound salt. They don't want to take the interview. And if they do take it, no joke, they are those pains in the butts that say undecided don't know across the board. All right, that's them. So they'll badly, badly skew your polling. Without a doubt, Donald Trump won double-digit Democratic support in the state of North Carolina. He won double-digit black support in the state of North Carolina. There is no other mathematical possibility. The reason it tightened to just 2 points, roughly 2 points, outside of I think he won it by nearly 4 last time, is because of whites in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg, but definitely in Charlotte. Charlotte is growing, but they're not growing with white Republican voters. They're growing with white wannabe elites. What we call over here, wannabe elites. Pinky in the air. They're professional class. They make over $100,000 a year. They're the kind of voters that Cooper is ensuring will come more to Wake County now with Apple's plant. All right? When it's not even a plant, with Apple's HQ, because those people are going to make a ton of money. These are IT jobs. They've been in Silicon, they've been, I don't know, I'm going to use that word. They have been, the worldview that favors Democrats has been promoted to them in their education and in their professional career. All right, so that's why Cooper is very smart to realize something I've been trying to explain to you guys and others for a very long time, that economics is politics. Doug Ducey, you are an idiot for bringing Nike to Phoenix. You are a fool. You want your state to be permanently Democrat. Keep it up. As a matter of fact, he's not alone. All Republicans seem to think if they kowtow to corporate interests, and those corporate interests bring jobs, that the kind of job doesn't seem to matter to their political future. These are not very smart people. They fake being smart. It's what happens when you obtain what Jefferson said was an artificial aristocracy, instead of what he prayed for America, an natural aristocracy. These are not smart people. They did not get to where they are based on merit. And as such, they make very stupid decisions. Wake County, if you are living in North Carolina and you are a conservative or a Republican or just somebody who does not want to see North Carolina turn into Virginia, you will oppose the Apple plant with every fiber in your being. You will find the time to make sure that that building doesn't go up. Whether it's by holding signs, screaming at board meetings, whatever it needs to be, you will ensure that everybody in North Carolina knows that Apple deals in slave labor, and by you putting that plant there, you are de facto supporting slave labor and mass suicides by the Chinese who are overworked. Anyway, moving on. There are a few states that really underscore the the problem with modern polling in this state and everywhere. Go back and look at the polls, and you will see maybe Donald Trump was taking 4% of the Democratic vote in North Carolina, right, Lauren? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Maybe he was taking 4%. Maybe he was taking 6, 7. There are voters, Democratic voters, in North Carolina who are difficult to reach, and they'll vote for a Democrat or a legislator, who is a Democrat, if they're convinced they're sufficiently conservative, because there's still the myth of the conservative Democrat here, as there are in other states. It's how Cunningham nearly beat Tom Tillis. He had convinced many voters in this state that he was indeed conservative. Until it came out that he was nailing somebody who wasn't his wife.
Oh man! Like,
In fact, somebody, again, because he was like Mr. Military, then he turned out to be a Jody. And every military, every conservative Southern Democrat in the Southern and everything from Southeast to Southwest in that state, they know what a Jody is.
For those non-military
And Cal
people,
Cunningham became a Jody.
Jodies are the individuals
Who hang out home and sleep with the wives of the soldiers
men
who
who are
actually
fighting
have
for
the
you.
who actually have the gumption to go and fight.
Oh,
And his record, as I hear it, is grossly exaggerated. So when that happened, I said it. I was like, that's it for Cal Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
He really did have a lead. He did. He absolutely had a lead over Tom Tillis. There's no doubt. And we went and we have good relationships with Democrats in North Carolina. And we're told flatly that their polling had Cal up 8 points. That story came out, and within 2 weeks, he evaporated and the race was dead even. That story hurt him because you're going to get the Republicans who vote for the Republicans. You're going to get Democrats who vote for Democrats. Then, the NPAs, the nuns, the others, they'll swing in certain directions. I think right now, as it stands, if you were to poll independents in North Carolina, they will appear to be Democrat-leaning, but they're really not. Because the numbers just simply don't add up. Folks, if Democrats outvoted Republicans, and there was no big crossover, and Joe Biden carried them by double digits, the others by double digits, then how the hell did Donald Trump win these counties? And, by extension, the state. You don't have to be a statistician. This is very basic math.
Mm-hmm.
There simply aren't the numbers. It's just the same way the New York Times got Florida wrong in 18 and then repeated that mistake in 20. Andrew Gillum was not going to win independents by 20 plus points. Neither was Joe Biden. But if you call people outside of Broward County, if you call independents in Broward County, if you call independents in Duval, if you call independents in Jacksonville, right in the surrounding area, it's going to appear to you that the independent vote is grossly slanted. But more and more, independents, obviously, in Monroe County are not going to vote the same way. Independents in Hyde are not going to vote. Let's stick to our state today. Independents in Hyde are not going to vote the same way as independents in Wake. Independents in Carteret are not going to vote the same way as independents in Mecklenburg. And if you don't or can't, which is becoming an increasing problem, they simply can't reach them. And the money it's going to take to do that, they're unwilling to spend. They want to put that money in their pocket. They are unwilling to do what it takes to reach representation because they want to put that money in their pocket. Pollsters, yeah.
Makes me angry.
I know way too many who skim off the top. By that I mean they know they need more responses. But they want to keep that.
They want to keep that extra cash.
They want to keep that extra cash. They're using a data collection method that is 4 times the cost of a more accurate method.
Also ancient.
And it's archaic. It's completely archaic.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with that, we are way over break time. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll see if we can answer some questions. This way they don't compound until Friday. A little show announcement. So that is booked for Friday then? That's booked
for Friday, yes. And
okay.
Then possibly on Wednesday we may have...
Speaking of Matt Brainerd, we'll have him on Friday. Mm-hmm. Well, and we're going to start having various candidates on if they want to, if they are willing to come on and deal with my questions. All right? Yeah, look. It's probably time we push these people a little bit. I'm beyond the normal talking point stuff. It's probably time to see how deep their knowledge really runs. Because I think that, like I was just saying, the artificial aristocracy is just a little too damn strong. All right. So with that, like I said, if you wanted access to this, and I didn't put the link out, but I should have. You could have followed along with our election map, which was a live result election map, to compare. Oh, I didn't compare it. Oh, hell. When we come back, I'll do that. I forgot. I actually got you guys an image for it. I will go over. We'll take one more peek at it by county, and then we'll show you Trump's performance. Okay? Like I said, it's basic math. You don't have to be a statistician here to see this. It's basic math. Then we'll talk a little bit about congressional districts and how they're likely to change in North Carolina. And then we'll move on to questions. So let me shut the hell up and take that break real quick. All right?
Yeah,
listen, don't forget, peoplespundit.locals.com. Peoplespundit.locals.com. Man, I can't stand this slow. And also too, no kidding. And also too, don't forget to subscribe if you like the YouTube channel. It is now People's Pundit instead of People's Pundit Daily. We're getting a lot about that. So don't type in People's Pundit Daily on the YouTube anymore. On URL, it is People's Pundit. All right, if you were already subscribed, it didn't boot you, right? So yeah, if you like the video, hit the like button. It always helps. And if you like the videos on People's Pundit's YouTube channel, then subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But if you want to be a part of the polling and the voter analysis that we conduct, you got to join the locals community. Like Laura said, peoplespundit.locals.com. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreak.
All right, and we're back. I almost got you there. All right, we're back. Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit and also on locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Got an interesting question on the break that I think does need to be addressed. The easiest way to sign up on Locals is to find a pinned post. When you go to read it, it will prompt you to do it. Because it is, you're right. Some people are like, what do I gave coins. I don't know how to actually join. It is a little bit weird for now. And that is partly my fault because I didn't do an introduction post yet, which was pinned and supporter only, which I will do. Okay, I will do it the minute I am off of this show. It is way overdue. I've done like 3. I don't like any of them, but now it's time to do it. And when you click on that, you click on that, it's going to. I know I've heard it before too. All right,
keep talking.
No, I got to do it. I got to because that question I get like daily. On the daily, all right? And by the way, when I went to support Don Smith, also another great community, Robert Barnes is with Viva Fry, Viva Barnes Law, great community, Eric Hunley, great community. There's just loads of them on there. Oh, by the way, I'm in talks with Eric right now to do that interview that we discussed on What Are the Odds. It will be a locals only interview. at which I will help to mainstream the unidentified aerial phenomenon. All right. So basically, unidentified aerial vehicles. All right, whatever you want to call them. Basically, I'll put that post up, and when you click on it, it will basically tell you, this is how you support it. All right, make it as easy as I possibly can.
And the coins are for tipping.
And the coins are great, yeah, but there's a tip jar now. You don't. I think coins I don't know. I've never tried to tip somebody. I just support their communities. But I do see. I personally, what I do to answer this question is I go to their community. I typically look for a locked post. And then when I click on the locked post, it says only supporters of this community can view it, become a supporter. And then I go from there. That's what I do. All right. The voter analysis models are locked. All right. So only people who join the community can see them. The polling that we do, that's locked. By the way, I keep forgetting to say this. The new public polling project is in fact up. All right. Because we were showing as about 2,000 underfunded for that last one that we put out, but we weren't underfunded. We were overfunded in the first project. Mm-hmm. So we rolled $2,000, about $1,800 over into the one that was done. So it did meet its goal. So I didn't want you guys to keep putting money in it because it didn't, it showed as it didn't meet the goal. It did. So we're on to the next one. And you can find that, of course, bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. It's in the YouTube description, but bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. And we have some great ideas for this next one, by the way. With locals community, we'll have a question about what's got to get sliced and what has to remain. There's going to be, of course, the tracking questions that we always have, the social desirability bias questions. It's the most important work being conducted in market research right now. Right now. Because eventually, we're going to have, right now we're at, if you exclude the 2020 public polling project, because that was battleground state only, and you just look at the social indicators nationally, we're up to about 8,000 responses for that we can go through demographics and look at. It's incredible. All right, and then of course we have the data from before the election. And the long-term trend is getting worse. 3 in 10, at least, typically before the election, and now we're sitting around 4 in 10. So what I mean by that is who is and who is not comfortable telling the truth during an interview with a pollster. We're at about 4 in 10 response. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. All right, so it creates uncertainty, and it's telling us that there is just a serious problem. A serious problem. And that the same groups over and over and over, with slight variations, of course, but generally speaking, the same groups over and over. All right, so back to North Carolina, speaking of polling, because this goes with what we were saying. Here is the voter file analysis again. And trust me when I tell you that it is accurate. There is no doubt about it. It's accurate. And real quick, if you want to see it, this is by congressional district. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. They will absolutely be changing. I have no doubt that Democrats are going to try to get another congressional district out of North Carolina because of the growth in Charlotte. All right. You can see that most eastern, by the way, congressional district. That was one that had that was up for election when they had the competitive election closer to Mecklenburg, right? All the media cared about was there because once upon a time, Mecklenburg looked a lot different and there were Republican suburbs out there. They didn't focus at all on the 3rd because it was an R30 district in 16. It was an R31 district in that special election. But nobody cared because it didn't fit their narrative. Mm-hmm. And what I told you about areas in Carteret and in Craven, these are affluent, wealthy communities. Why didn't they move against Donald Trump? Well, that didn't fit the narrative, did it? They didn't move against Donald Trump because it's about culture and socioeconomic status. It is not about solely geography, which that does obviously implicitly bring geography into the conversation, but that is too superficial, always was too superficial. Why didn't Kenosha move against Donald Trump? Why didn't Bucks County move against Donald Trump? These are culturally different areas. It is the difference between, yeah, I'm rich and I made my money myself. And, or not even rich, but yeah, I'm affluent and well-to-do and I made my money myself. Versus, I inherited this ability to go to Yale, or this ability to go get some kind of tech job, or that's the difference, folks. It's the difference between Mike Wallace and Chris Wallace.
Ooh, very
all right,
well done.
That's it. I mean, it's a great.
That's a great.
It's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's go back real quick just so you can see it by county again before I. Here is by county. Keep this in your mind. I know it's going to be weird to overlap this. And here is the election results, which you can find on People's Pundit Daily, which we did, on election night, 5 million on this map. Love you guys for it. 5 million on this map, I believe we did on election night. And that was just the presidential. We got another 3.5 in the House, in the Senate, each, I think. It was ridiculous.
How many pollsters are jealous of the People's Polling Project?
Why we're hearing such trash?
No, I'm saying they're just jealous, that all of this data that's coming because you guys support it is just awesome.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
They're jealous
yeah.
that they won't
without
go
a
to
doubt.
them.
Oh, without a doubt.
You know what I'm talking about?
We're able to do this too without the heavy weight of a client. You understand what I'm saying? We don't have to. We don't have the pressure that a lot of other pollsters are dealing with. I can just do my best, and that's what you're supporting us to do. You go and donate to the Public Polling Project because you want somebody who's going to do their best and then tell you the truth. All right, and the graph is on.
Yeah.
And that is sadly not the case with anybody else. It's just not. All right, so here we go. Now you will notice the map. Keep an eye on it, especially look at some of the eastern counties where you can see obviously right up until, I would say, from up until Washington in the Northeast, clearly Democrat dominated. Then why on earth does the map look like this? And by the way, remember, from the southeast to the southwest, look at all of the Democratic dominance in the southern part of the state. Look at counties, for instance, like, what's another good example? Columbus, Robeson, Bladen. All right, look at all of those. Democrat dominated on the voter file, clearly. All right, yet they were all red. How does that happen if Donald Trump only has single-digit crossover support? It's not possible. So you have exit polls, folks. You have polls, and then you have freaking results.
What do you have?
Freaking results.
Yeah, baby.
This is not debatable. Not only were the polls wrong, they were very, very wrong. Even those who might have come close were close for the wrong reasons. Their internals, inside the numbers, they were very, very wrong. So here we have Donald Trump still yet above 50, but barely, with obviously a big full ticket here. 5 candidates on this ballot. Joe Jorgensen did receive about 49,000 votes, almost 1%. Howie Hawkins only took 0.2 of a percentage point, about a little over 12,000 votes. Don Blankenship took about 7,500 votes, or a little over 0.1 of a percentage point. All right. But Donald Trump still managed to carry the state by a little over 100,000 votes. All right. So, just a little under 100,000 votes. However, again, I would argue that this is, yes, getting to be a very close state. Mm-hmm. But I would argue if we didn't do the COVID changes, Trump would have won this state by roughly the margin that he won by last time. It was indeed the late arrivals that tightened it considerably. The election day vote was overwhelming. Not only overwhelming in margin, it was overwhelming in total raw numbers. Nobody has ever turned out a Republican vote, because it weren't just Republicans. This is what is so important to know. Nobody has ever turned out, no Republican candidate has ever turned out that many Republican votes statewide, and yet still, still won. Now, the old traditional equation did hold here for areas like Wake County. Donald Trump held Joe Biden below 63% in Wake County, and the general consensus is you cannot, as a Republican, fall below 35% in Wake County. It is happening, and even though Republicans still can manage to hang on, it's difficult. And the bottom line is Donald Trump took 36 in Wake County this time. So it looked like a 3 to 4 point typical statewide win for Donald Trump. And it really turned out to just be about 1.5 points, right? So, again, one of those other anomalies is where I'm going with this, folks. All right. It is true. You will see Charlotte is growing, so you will see that number, but start to tick up. But again, you didn't really see the margin change all that much there, which is important because you have Forsyth only went for Joe Biden by about 14 points. That was interesting. Thought it would be a little bit more than that. Donald Trump closed the gap significantly in Watauga. So a lot of this, I'm talking about compared to what the trend was and what you would have expected given what we had seen in Mecklenburg and the surrounding area during the specials. And then Joe Biden did win Mecklenburg by a very large margin. But again, it was a concentrated area where on election night, folks, it wasn't that large. It was votes that were kind of trickling in after the bell that widened out Biden's margin in some of these areas. On election night, Donald Trump was at 40% in Wake County. It was incredible. I was stunned. I'm like, this cannot stand. And it took those trickles to bring him down. All right? And, really, if it was just a matter of partisan affiliation. So if the media was right, the media pundits and pollsters, in their not so infinite wisdom, if they were right that the era of the white Southern Democrat voting Republican on the presidential level is over, and those people, that is what's fueling Republican registrations. If they were right, then Donald Trump would have absolutely lost his state. Absolutely. Which is why, by the way, I was so bullish on Laura if she would have ran. And she didn't. So now there's...
Now this Laura has to... No.
There's polling I had just seen that showed that, Buck, I believe his name is.
I think so.
Got the endorsement of Trump over others because Republicans in North Carolina, Pat McCrory is their first choice for the Senate race. And he is well known and well liked. I'll tell you right now, I went out and spoke to the workers, and they like Pat McCrory a lot, which was strange to me because when I say workers, I'm talking about Hispanics, newly naturalized Hispanics. All right, which, by the way, no chance Donald Trump wins Carteret County. No chance Donald Trump wins Craven County. No chance he does that well in Greenville. No chance, man, unless he is winning this new growing working class Hispanic vote share that's in the state. This is what's driving the housing boom here in this state. These guys are pro-Trump to the core. Mm-hmm. And I did, go out and talk to a bunch of them and ask them, who their first choice was. And it did mirror what I found. Definitely did mirror the polling by Buck's own campaign. And I hope I'm getting your name right, buddy. But which is that when they're not told and they're unaware, and this is the problem with Trump losing his social media. This is the threat to democracy that big tech is causing by taking this man's social media accounts away. It's causing disinformation and a lack of information, and it's saving nobody.
Intentional.
And it's saving nobody. Let's get real here. They're so full of crap. He's a threat. right? Ask Steve Scalise who's a threat and who's not. Because if Hillary Clinton still has her Twitter account, and if it wasn't for Hillary Clinton and Rachel Maddow and all the rest of them and Jake Tapper, Steve Scalise wouldn't have taken a bullet. Plural. It's just true.
It's sad though.
It's just true.
You
I did it again. Yeah, well, he should know I'm on the show.
I'm gonna tell your boss.
Uh-oh. Never mind. I'm not gonna get into it. I was gonna get.
Behave.
I wasn't gonna behave for a second there.
Yes.
Yeah, but basically, I found very similar. Was they know who Pat McCrory is, and they're like, oh, Pat's my guy. I'm gonna vote for Pat. What if I told you that Donald Trump endorsed someone else and this person? What would you do then? Oh, I'm gonna vote for I'm gonna vote for the Trump endorsed candidate. It must mean something's wrong with Pat McCrory. And if you remember, he is well liked with Republicans, but he did get himself into some trouble. All right, and I mean, you really, if you're a North Carolinian, you have Cooper right now because of McCrory. I mean, that's just the truth. I'm not advocating for anybody here. McCrory is probably the stronger candidate as of right now. But he probably is not the most pro-Trump. Or Trump, not pro-Trump, because forget about Trump as a person. But basically, no, that's not it.
Okay.
But basically, the Trump agenda, most pro-Trump agenda. Or at least he's convinced the president of that, former president. All right, so I don't know. Let the primary play out and we'll see. But without big media getting rid of Donald Trump, basically big media is hindering Donald Trump from being a kingmaker, and that's really what their intention is. They want to keep him from running again. They're afraid he's going to run again because I'm not sure if lightning can strike twice in the same spot. I'm not sure we can take another election cycle of what are clear majorities believing that Joe Biden didn't win legitimately. I'm not sure the country can take that. That doesn't mean they wouldn't try. That doesn't mean they wouldn't care. Or that doesn't mean they would not care, right? But I'm saying they are deathly afraid of this guy running again. They are, which is why they tried to prohibit him from ever running again. It has nothing to do with this character or what he said or what happened on January 6th. They don't give a damn about all that. They don't want Donald Trump to come back because they want K Street to continue to operate as normal. They want business to operate as usual. All right, so Mitch McConnell, he wants his wife to keep bringing in the bacon. You know?
I know. Oh man.
I mean, really. I mean, I'm not.
This
This isn't just about Democrats. This is not. This is not just about Democrats.
People.
They're just. They are even worse, in fact, because at least Democrats don't lie about who and what they are.
don't hide behind.
They don't hide behind these fake principles.
Oh.
Right.
Don't get me started.
Like right.
You know how angry that gets me.
So basically, they don't want him to run again because of that, but also they don't want him to be a kingmaker. And his lack of ability to get his message out directly to people vis-a-vis social media is hurting that ability. So they don't want a bunch of America First candidates running around, let alone winning. They don't want, that's like their second worst nightmare. That's like nightmare number 2, which is that the Republican Party actually does get purged of the frauds Laura's about to go off on and is replaced instead by people who really do believe it. Now, I'm not sure that applies to Pat McCrory. He found himself in hot water from other things, but he did try to stand up for the overwhelming majority of North Carolinians when he was the governor of North Carolina. Let's face it. Concealed carry, the transgender bathroom issue, these were all fights that he took on. And look at the polling. Where do you think North Carolinians come down on the issue of transgender bathrooms, transgender participation in sports? Where do you think they come down on the issue when it's already 2-1 nationally? I refer you to the garbage PPP and other polls that showed that gay marriage was popular in North Carolina. And then it went down in referendum in a blaze of glory. There's some reasons for these. It's not just that white Democrat. that's conservative black voters who may very well vote Democrat anyway, even though they're conservative and they're African American. The racial demographic vote preference overtakes the ideological. So, but when they get to the ballot, doesn't matter if their preferred party candidate is telling them they support that. Black voters do not support gay marriage. Many black voters don't. They just don't. They don't support abortion either, which is incredible. Late-term abortion specifically. Yet somehow they vote Democrat. Well, we know why, but I'm saying. But when they have a chance to vote on a referendum, and there's no R or D next to it, that referendum went down that badly. I mean, it was like, what? Over 60% was no. Mm-hmm. No was above 60%. I mean, it got crushed. And it got crushed during an election that went favorably for Democrats. A cycle. So it, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the bottom line is, I think this is a bridge too far. So Pat McCrory did stand up for that, but he had a lot of problems and baggage that went along with it, which led him to some very, very dirty fights. An election that was decided by a few hundred votes, and I'm not sure that stuff won't come back to bite him. I just don't know yet. It's tough. It is a difficult state to poll. We did not poll it in 2020. I didn't feel like we should have. I thought, generally speaking, if Trump was going to win Florida, if he was going to win Ohio, Iowa, then it would really come down to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and generally surrounding area. I didn't think it would be worth it. I thought he's going to hold the Sun Belt, which, strangely. By the way, everybody thought that, right? Didn't the meeting with everybody who was using decision desk stuff, didn't that meeting, everybody, and I mean everyone, was convinced that if Donald Trump took Florida early, that Georgia and Arizona were going to fold over? Mm-hmm. That was going to be the first sign that Donald Trump did it again, right?
But if you notice,
that wasn't me. Hey. I sat quiet, folks, during that meeting, and I listened to everybody else because I wanted to know what these pundits were saying behind your back, in closed doors, behind closed doors, because it looked a lot different and sounded a lot different than what you might have read on their Twitter feed.
All right,
and believe me, it was.
The cynic in me wants to say this.
Hold on. Okay.
All right. Once you called Florida in less than 45 minutes?
It was 45 minutes roughly, yeah.
How quick did Fox News call Arizona?
Yes.
Let's just put that together, people.
Yeah.
I ain't saying anything. I'm just.
I've been very vocal about that myself. Mm-hmm. I did it on War Room openly.
Just saying.
Fox News made a conscious decision, even though they knew it was irresponsible. Once Donald Trump carried Florida and it looked like it was going to be overwhelming, they all panicked again. They all went into a panic, and they were afraid they were going to look like fools again. They couldn't suffer another embarrassing crush to their credibility. So Fox, as a role they played in 2018, by the way, who called the House first when people were still voting? It was Fox News. Yeah. I posit to you, folks, that Fox is used as a tool. They want back in the club very badly. They still haven't earned, even though they've gotten back their foot in the door a little bit, they still haven't earned their way back into the club since 2016. They were viewed as committing a sin in the industry, helping to get Donald Trump elected. So they got shut out of the DNC debates. And what is that? What does that matter? It's money. Advertising money. Ratings, which cause advertising. Right.
Yeah, ratings.
They absolutely wanted back in the club. Everybody knows this. This isn't a secret in the industry. And they were just about willing to do anything to get back into that club. Even betray their own voters, because Fox News is not conservative. With the exception of Tucker Carlson.
That's it.
And I wouldn't even call them conservative. That's not what I mean. They're not looking out for the voters. They claim to share their worldview. They don't share their worldview. There's nothing conservative about those people. Nothing. So in an event, they were once again used as the tool to do the wider mainstream media, I'm calling them that, the wider propagandist corporate media's dirty work. And they made that call in Arizona when everybody knows that was an illegitimate call. Irresponsible and illegitimate. It doesn't matter if, first of all, it's not going to hold. But it doesn't matter even if the margin was to hold after this audit. It doesn't matter. There was, in fact, the pattern from Arizona was showing that Donald Trump's election day margin was going to overtake the early vote because the early vote lead for Joe Biden was not big enough, which we got, by the way, early. And the talk early was, oh, wow, if this is the way it's going to be for Joe Biden in other states, this is a real big problem. If Trump gets a bigger than usual election day turnout, this is not enough. And it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
Nope.
It wasn't enough in North Carolina. It wasn't enough in Florida. It wasn't enough in Ohio. First of all, Joe Biden didn't even have
a
lead in Ohio.
In Ohio, let's be
He
honest.
wasn't even right. That man wasn't even a serious. He wasn't even competitive.
Nope.
Trump won every category of vote in Ohio. I mean, this is just crazy. Except for isolated areas. Cuyahoga, of course, areas like that. Trump did incredibly well on the early vote in Toledo. We almost fell out of our pants. Remember that? I was like, what is this? This Toledo? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you handing me right now? I'm like, this is not the results of the early vote in Toledo.
Sure
no
was.
way. No. No. That's worse than Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm. But yet we're to believe this man won.
Anyway, let's move along. I think we got enough in there. Let's get some questions. The last thing I'll just say about North Carolina is that you will attempt, and let me bring up the districts so they can see what I'm talking about here. You will see the Democrats attempt. You see the Northeast there? Obviously, you know what's up there, right? You will see them attempt to carve out of the 3rd to take away, because Carteret is to the south of that district. You will see them attempt to carve out some of the northern part of that district and create a new district with the neighboring district to the northwest. All right, and they will attempt to create one there and probably one down in the southwest of that near Mecklenburg. All right, and why? Because those ancestral areas are not holding. They're not holding, so they're going to try to use the population gains from Charlotte and other areas to carve out some of the vote. Now, it still would take a lot to make that competitive, Laura. Mm-hmm. I mean, to take that, to make that district that includes, what's it called? That includes Dare, Hyde, Carteret, what's the Pumlico, right? It's Beaufort, right? And Craven, Jones. It's so Republican, they will have to try to carve out to the east, where Terrell, to the east of Washington, and they're going to try to make the areas that encompass where Bertie, Washington itself again, Hartford, they're probably going to do that, and they're probably going to attempt to make those a new district, because the western part of the Democratic-leaning district with Charlottesville is already so solidly Democratic. They can try to take Washington and other areas and chop off, because the population is different, guys. The population is stronger in those counties, and they're going to try to take away from lesser populated but overwhelmingly Republican areas. They're going to try to pull them into a totally separate district. Maybe they'll just wind up, saying Carteret, Craven, Pumlico, you guys can have it. You just have that. But then that doesn't make a competitive county anymore. A competitive district anymore, I'm sorry. That'll turn one competitive area into one that is solidly Democratic and one that leans Democratic. And that's what they're going to try to do. Mark my words.
Smart move.
It's smart. Mm-hmm. Look, you got to give it to Democrats. They cry like little babies about, oh my God, they redistricted. These racist. They gerrymandered for 100+ years. It wasn't until recently, in the beginning of the 21st century, did Republicans try to un-F what they did. I mean, it's incredible. And now they're going to try to do it again, which is why you see the sue to your blue kind of campaigns. All right, so I'll leave it with that. We got 20 minutes because Friday is going to be so big, and it's typically freewheeling Friday. It's going to be a jam-packed episode with multiple guests. Let's try to get some questions in today because of that. I just need some water. Let's give it a second.
Drink up. All right.
Putting a graphic up here, folks. You don't need to see me drink.
Let's look at a map that he just talked about. All right. Carlos wants to know, what would the non-fraud margins in Arizona and Georgia have been?
That's kind of hard because, I mean, the bottom line here, guys, is all we can tell you is that, I mean, I have my own thoughts, right? I have my own opinions, but we don't know for certain how these votes, who they were for. Mm-hmm. All right. We don't know that for certain, so I can't say that with a certainty. However, why I feel the way I feel is for several reasons. One, Republicans don't have the infrastructure or the control of these areas to do this. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They don't have the means to do it. Forget about whether or not they'd have the will to do it. So I am very hard-pressed, very, very hard-pressed to believe that all this stuff was done to the benefit of Donald Trump. I think you borderline on simple if you would believe that. And I am not saying there's not fraud on both sides. We're just talking about North Carolina. Democrats they got a whole new election because they allege fraud in that special election. In that didn't work out. 2018, that's what brought the special election for that district. They alleged fraud. There was evidence of minor absentee ballot fraud, minor compared to what we're talking about. And yet they got a completely new election, wound up losing by a bigger margin anyway, which is hilarious. But it is.
I know. I'm like, it didn't work out.
But so I'm not saying it doesn't happen on both sides, but what we are seeing now, the picture we are seeing now, Robert and I were discussing last night, is that this was all outsourced, and the only way it could have been successful was with, at the very least, certain officials turning a blind eye, if not participating in it blatantly. So, what's my own opinion? I think I nailed Arizona. Look, I'll personally tell you, Laura and I were just talking about this last week. We were going over our prior work. And what I suspect happened in Arizona, I think I nailed it. I think it was Trump 2.5. I do. That's what I believe. Or very close, anyway. Maybe 1.5 to 2.5. And I don't know, what was the other state he was saying?
Sorry. I was listening.
Yeah, I think I absolutely killed it. And I could go over with you guys in more detail historic increases for Democrats, factoring in population gains, by the way. Historic vote share increases in these areas in Maricopa and in the rest of the state, and versus what Donald Trump put up, which was historic in and of itself. There was only one area where Joe Biden put up any increase, and that was where he needed it to be, in Maricopa, and it also happened to, one, far exceed what population supports, and two, far exceed any historic gain we've ever seen before. It just, we've never seen that before. So with all of the different things that could have happened, and suggesting in that letter that these records don't match, now hearing, well, that was an accident with test ballots. I mean, that could have played a major role. I think everybody would be stupid, especially since the allegations, both there and in Georgia, are that there's a problem with the chain of custody, and that the recorded number does not match what they have physically. And that also, I mean, that makes sense to me. That could have accounted for that. Honestly, that absolutely could account for that disparity. That, whether by accident or intentional, they were using new systems and they screwed up, and they included test results, and now they don't want anybody to go over and audit their work because they'll find test ballots in there or blatant adjudications of ballots that we already know that the number in both areas of adjudications is ridiculous. You just don't see numbers. This is the problem with the naysayers. They can't explain any of what we're talking about right now, what we're saying right now. They can't explain these anomalies, so they just echo the lie, the real big lie, which is that there is no evidence. There is no... That's ridiculous. I mean, you really have to be someone who, it's like a baby. La, 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 I'm not hearing you. La, 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 like a baby, like a child, immature little child. Because of course there is. And they can't explain these anomalies when someone like myself reads an actual record out loud on air. Notice there were no fact checks of those records, right? How many episodes did I do that? In how many different states? Georgia being one of them, right? You don't see any fact checks there, do you? Of course not, because they don't even have access to the same tools we have access to, so they couldn't possibly be an authority to fact check us. The only one who could fact check us would be some independent observer who had access to information these state governments refuse to get to us still to this day, in many cases, and also access to the same tools we have access to, which are the constantly updating, constantly revised National Voter File Database, which it is a National Voter File Database, but it's broken down by state, and it's updated bi-weekly in most states. I believe it's bi-weekly, and then monthly. So a part of that, though, I'm glad he brought up, because I wanted to say this. I did. I would say it's probably, if you take out, let me put it this way. If you just simply return to the historic rejection rates for Gwinnett, Fulton, Cobb, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking at a 2.5 point margin, something like that. I mean, something like that. Actually, no. In Georgia, it's would probably 2 points, something. But since it's so many different angles, I mean, that's just absentee balloting. We don't know about all of these other now potential errors. So if I did something like this in Maricopa and there was an audit, I would want to delete that log, which is what really raises my BS meter. Mm-hmm. So if I knew somebody was going to audit my work, and I knew that the recorded number was not going to match the physical count, then I would delete that log, because that log is going to tell you whenever these totals were processed and what was included in those totals. And a great way to cover up whether I accidentally put in scans of test ballots or purposely, mm-hmm. is to delete that log. Now you can't, even if you find it now, you can't prove my intent. Did I intend to do it? Was it an accident? Right? Are those no fold, as the judge said, appeared to be Xerox copied ballots, right? Are those to cover for those test ballots? I don't know, guys. That's what is so important about these audits. When you shock a system, the way we shock these, because it's not just one system, it's numerous. These states were simply not designed to take these, to conduct elections the way we conducted them, and they were not capable of implementing these changes while still preserving election integrity. They weren't. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you, including election officials. How overwhelmed were they?
Oh, yeah.
How overwhelmed were they in Milwaukee when we were the before the election? Mm-hmm. Tried to contact them and ask them. We were constantly trying to ask about outstanding, what's still out, what's been returned, right? Mm-hmm. They were totally beside themselves. And I quote, one person said, "We're just trying to keep our heads above water." You remember that? They had no idea, folks. They had no idea. It was total chaos. Mm-hmm. And when you shock a system like that, you leave potential
Just human error alone would be
just
a problem.
error, right?
Just that,
Absolutely,
without
right.
intent.
I want to make that clear, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm trying to tell you, again, to watch out for these people who are just like, everything's fraud, everything's fraud.
Yeah, but when
Some
you get
stuff can be
overwhelmed-
human error. And it's like, if you just immediately run to the fraud thing, you may divert someone who's trying to legitimately investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
You may divert them on a mission that was unnecessary. Like, that list of dead people in Michigan.
Oh, gosh.
How many people did we remove off that list immediately? That was circulating on Twitter?
It was like every 3.
A lot.
Every
A lot,
3
folks.
on
That list that was like 10,000 dead people voted, which was crazy because we came up with a similar number. But it was like, but we threw out a ton of people that were not legitimate.
If we couldn't perfectly legitimize it
was
as
gone.
fraud,
Right. And if you read the report we've put up on Locals, you'll see. We tossed a lot of people that very well, by the way, we may have been too conservative on some of them to toss, but I wanted to be absolutely certain. And anybody who was trying to tell you, just go back, we're going to stop it. We're going to stop it. Legitimate investigations of elections take a long time. And we want, there was just so many people on the right who were trying to exploit Trump supporters' desires to stop it or reverse it, right? Mm-hmm. That was a grift. That was never possible. It's just not if you're going to do a thorough and credible job. It took us forever. Not forever, but it took us a significant amount of time. A lot of sleepless nights to get through the first state. If not, I just killed it. I don't know why that.
Take you nowhere.
Emails, they just follow their own. They have their own. I'm telling you.
Can't take you nowhere.
Yeah, look, see, I missed a call. I mean, they have their own mind. I don't know what to. Basically, I just did it again. Let's see. But basically, we prioritized some areas of Georgia and had to stop doing what we were doing in some other areas, Arizona being one of them. But that was all right because in Arizona, there was no other data available outside of Maricopa County. I kid you not. Only Maricopa. That's why it's funny, this audit everyone cares about because there's 2.1 million votes there. But that wasn't even the place where we found the worst instances of people not complying correctly or following procedures correctly. And they were just stonewalling the hell out of us. All right, so yeah, let's get another one.
2 minutes, right?
2 minutes.
Hey,
man.
I'm just saying.
I'm not on Tucker right now. I don't have to keep my answers
Practice
piffy.
makes perfect. Practice makes perfect.
Come on now.
Vince Locker would like to know, can you ask Rich if he believes that these idiot Republican politicians may change their minds on businesses now that so many are not donating to the GOP and
Absolutely.
focus on working class messaging?
Absolutely. I can answer that in one word. Yup.
Yeah. Shut up. That's it?
That's it.
Oh, man, I gotta check my pulse. I'm living. Holy moly.
But I'll add this.
Oh,
No, I'm just
I was
kidding.
gonna say,
No, they're scumbags, folks. They're scumbags. The Republican leadership is scumbags, and they will do wherever the money takes them. It's that simple.
All right, Neil Harris, Laura, maybe a bit off topic, but does Rich have an opinion on what? Did you watch Tucker? He said
I watched
about
some of it.
spying on him, and
Yeah, they're definitely spying on Tucker.
And are there
Notice,
true ramifications?
Look,
to it?
I have no doubt. Not that I have evidence. I have no doubt they're spying on Tucker Carlson. Mm-hmm. Folks, don't ever date an NSA agent, ladies. Don't ever date.
Seriously.
I know people who spy on their girlfriends to see what they're up to. I know people who spy on girls who aren't their girlfriends.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I'm not kidding.
I know.
These people aren't virtuous. They abuse these programs all the time. They're absolutely spying on people who are critical of Joe Biden. There's just no doubt about it.
There gotta be
Tucker Carlson, I would be shocked if they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how they do it, because I did watch Summer Tucker. And Harmeet, you are 100% dead on. They don't get the FISA warrant to go after you, if they even bother to get a warrant, which in many cases, they don't. But if they do, they don't tell the FISA court they want to go after Tucker Carlson. No. They'll tell the FISA court they want to go after somebody close to Tucker. And they are allowed latitude, a couple degrees of separation, and they will call it incidental collection. That is what they did to Trump. You think anybody gives a rat's
But
about Carter Page? John Brennan knew Carter Page had helped the CIA in the past. He already had a dossier on him. He was a perfect mark. He was handpicked because of, which is sad, his willingness to work with the intelligence community in the past. They already knew because of associations he had with energy in Eastern Europe at their behest. He was doing it for them. But they used those associations to then ask the FISA warrant for ask the FISA court, the FISC, for a FISA warrant. They didn't care about Carter Page. He was a peripheral advisor, and they were able to use him as an excuse to collect incidental intelligence. Incidental means they were spying on their mark, but they spied on you too because you fell within their circle. It's bull crap. I just want to note, you may notice, I could create a Venn diagram off of it. You may notice that the same people who came out and criticized Tucker for alleging, that they're spying on him and others, they're the same people who pushed the Iraq War and Russia collusion. The Jonah Goldberg fraud, Jonah Goldberg, that chump, liar, immediately, the NSA isn't spying on Donald Trump. How do you know, Jonah? These are the same deep state apologists. It's because of them we have this strong of a national security state. It's because of them we have no Fourth Amendment privacy anymore. It's because of them and their willingness to fall at the feet of whatever George W. Bush's cabinet told that idiot he needed every day. We need a Department of Homeland Security. We need a stronger FISC. We need a more secret FISC. These fools have been pretending to be conservative for years. The guy's a total joke. They're all the same group. Jonah, where are the WMDs, Jonah? Where are the WMDs? Before you open your mouth, or any of you open your mouths again, you should have to answer to the question for every maimed and murdered U.S. soldier who went to Iraq based on your lies. Where are the WMDs? Scumbags.
A lot of them. Animals.
Moving on.
I love you. All right, Joel.
Should be tried for their lies.
I thought we were moving on, my love. Ready?
Anybody die as a result of Donald Trump's so-called, their stupid little lie tracker at the Washington Post? Anybody die of any of those lies because of any of those lies?
He didn't even start a war.
Because people died over the lies of Jonah Goldberg, Bill Kristol, Max Boot, and the lot of them. People died from their lies and their stupid policies. Had anybody die from Donald Trump's? People died for Russia collusion. Anybody die for Donald Trump's? Brian Sitnick wasn't killed because of the riot on January 6th. By the way, before you even bring that up. All right? Let's go.
Okay, Joe wants to know, on Viva Barnes Law Locals chat, some are saying they are verifying signatures on the Arizona audit. Does Rich know anything about this? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who they are, but verifying certain ballots the way they are verifying ballots is not the same. Unless they evolved on some of them, then maybe they are. But the last I heard and was told directly from how they're doing it, and then also even Matt was under the impression they on that second round they gave up the ability. Look, Democrats and Republicans were trying to meet an agreement on how they were going to do this in Maricopa, and in the second round they gave up. Republicans caved on the potential to verify signatures. So I don't know where some people are getting this from, unless they're doing it behind their, I don't know. But last I heard they are not. So they're verifying certain sequential ordering, which is good because you'd be able to find errors like this. That's what, Robert and I were trying to tell people forever about making these ballots public. It's important. But, I mean, I don't think so. I'd like to know who they are because, that's not what they agreed to do.
I think the answer is no to this because I don't know them, because usually you and I watch the same people. But Anonymous wants to know, does Rich have any thoughts on the group that had been covering the audits on YouTube? Tenna Paul, Mosder, B. Hizzy, etc.
I don't know any of them. I mean, I wouldn't follow. Honestly, guys, I wouldn't follow people like that. I would go, if I have a question about how Republicans feel this recount is going, I'll call Dr. Ward. I mean, if I want to get in touch with the Arizona State Senate, I'll call a legislator. If I want to get in touch with, I just know people.
You go to the source.
I could go directly to
Just
it.
go to
Cyber Ninja is doing an extremely professional job. If you called Cyber Ninja right now, they're not going to tell you anything. I'm telling you. They are doing an extremely professional job. So I see a lot of claims on the right. And, the criticisms on the left. There are claims on the right, criticisms on the left. Most instances surrounding this audit, they're both completely wrong. I mean, we know what we know because of publicly released correspondence, but we don't know the inner machinations of what's going on. We just don't. And by the attitude of Hobbs and the Maricopa Board of Elections, they wouldn't be flipping out about that. I mean, last week when I heard Hobbs, I was just stunned. And she's like, even if it is legitimate, it's too late to undo what happened here. I just couldn't believe it. It sounded like somebody who was preparing for an audit to say their result is wrong. That's what it sounded like. You wouldn't say that. And for a while, Democrats were trying to cast doubt on the credibility of the audit. And now they're saying, well, Hobbs herself said, even if it is credible, it's just too late. It's too late to change the result. I was like, whoa. Well, that was 2 weeks ago, actually. But let's get one more. It's 102.
All right.
And then you're right. I got to do this thing. I got to do this video. It's got to happen.
All right. Dragnog wants to know, how popular is HR 3960, abolish ATF? Is this something people want, or is it just a reaction for the squad?
That's a good question. In the 90s, abolishing the ATF was very popular. Republicans were going to come in Congress and sweep. Waco happened in response to Ruby Ridge, which was an accident. And I'm getting to an answer here on purpose. I'm going back in history.
Not you.
They killed a Green Beret. They sniped him. He was unarmed. It was a disgrace. And when Waco happened, the ATF was attempting to rebuild their reputation, and they obviously blew that. The FBI took over from them and, in my opinion, murdered all those people. All right, look. David Koresh was a nutcase, and if people who followed him were dumb. I mean, I'm sorry. Well, it is what it is. But they had every right to carry the weapons they were carrying. They had every right to practice what they wanted to practice. They went out searching for David Koresh because they were trying to get a win in the public, because public opinion was souring on them badly. And people wanted to get rid of ATF. Republicans were getting stronger in Congress. And we know what happened. Bill Clinton was indeed a moderate, and had he been forced, he probably would have at least scaled them back if Republicans cut funding to them. All right, so it wasn't going to end up in an abolish the ATF, but it was on the table to dramatically cut their funding. In the end, sadly, what happened, with the help of the corrupt mainstream media, they buried what happened at Ruby Ridge and Waco, and the ATF and DOJ in general got more money. I mean, that's sad, but that's what happened. All right. Back then, there was this weird coalition of like left-wingers who were skeptical of authority, and didn't like, the old 60s kind of liberal, and right-wingers who were anti-big government, anti-powerful government. Your general Second Amendment supporting anti-government conservatives. And that was this weird coalition of them, also with a horrified suburban non-political coalition. And there was a desire to, at the very least, scale back their power. Nowadays, it hasn't been polled in so long. It's a great question. And it's probably one worthy of polling, whether or not just ATF, but whether or not we need certain agencies anymore. That's probably worth I suspect that the squad is probably speaking for a certain group of conservatives more than Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy are. Because there are, and has remained since the days of Ruby Ridge, a block of conservatives who believe that having these militarized law enforcement, domestic law enforcement forces is dumb. It's not compatible with freedom. Because if you do try to live your life the way you want to live it, with your God-given right to the First, Second Amendments and Fourth Amendments, they won't respect any of it. And God forbid you get in their way and you become something, a tool for them to show off flex their muscles and win back the public trust. They'll use it. I mean, I don't know how you feel about what happened there, and I tell you, I have very strong feelings after studying what happened in that entire period. I mean, this is what these agencies do. I mean, it's like naive view that these guys are the good guys or something. It's just crazy. They are the good guys in some instances, but they'll be the ones who come after you for domestic terrorism because you don't support Joe Biden, folks. Because you have maybe in their view, you have way too many guns and they don't like your Facebook posts. I'm not kidding. It'll be them who come for you. It's an interesting thing to poll. And we do trust in institutions, but that's very interesting. And it's worth me marinating on. It is.
I think so.
I do too. All right, with that, it's 1:07, so I guess we will take it out here. Do not forget to hit the like button if you like this video. All right, and of course, subscribe to the People's Pundit YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell. That will let you know when we're going to go live. You can still follow me on Twitter at @peoples_pundit, but definitely, if you want to have access, you saw the graphics today, but if you want to have access to the PDF, the voter analysis models that we do in these states, that's the locals community only, which you can join up, become a supporter at peoplespundit.locals.com. A lot of cool stuff. And I was thinking of, before we move on to the next state, or at least we don't have to go over it on the show, but I was thinking of doing a few congressional districts in North Carolina, so you better understand what I'm talking about with how I believe they're going to move these district boundaries around and attempt to add one and blend some others. All right, so that's peoplespundit.locals.com, and I keep forgetting to do this, but yes, there is a new public polling project up. I figured we do have some time. We did get the early summer one. If you guys fund it, I will try to poll. It's hard to reach people during certain times in the summer. All right, but I was thinking we could at least put this up now, make sure we're funded by Labor Day, or what is it? Memorial, cool. Labor Day. Memorial's one that passed. Yes. Labor Day marks the end of the summer. Yeah, and it would be nice. All right, so with that in mind, I'm gonna go kick rocks. Special thanks to Bowen for the theme song and everybody for watching and sharing the videos. We love you all.
And then your interview with Eric.
Oh, did you book it already?
No, I thought you did.
Oh, I didn't book it. I told him to contact you. Come on now. You know I'm not doing it. Yeah, I will double book something. Every time I try to book something myself, I screw it up. I double book. I mean, it's just not good. So I'm total hands off now.
But definitely this Friday, we will definitely have
Friday we'll have Matt Brainerd on and talk about some more of this stuff. We'll talk about what he's doing with his anti-political persecution. I mean, that's what it is. What else is it?
I mean, that's all you can call it.
And we're going to start to have some candidates on. It's going to be very, very cool, jam-packed. Of course, we'll have Dawn on Friday, and it'll be a great show. All right, and we'll go over something else too. We're going to have another voter file analysis. I just don't think it's going to be on the congressional districts. You guys are smart enough to understand what I'm talking about. On locals, people are. And if you want to talk about it on Zoom call, which we're going to do this week, then we can do that. All right, so with that in mind,
We love you. We
love you.
appreciate your support.
As always,
And you guys are the best.
and we're out like trout.
Juice.
You're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
It should be on.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife. So give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away.